This last section, I'm talking about leadership. I thought what we do is two basic things. One, again, we've talked about how focusing on one role is, there's some utility in doing that, in that it kind of really highlights this sort of intersection or this amalgamation of leadership, power, impact, authority, examination, understanding, all that kind of stuff. Then the other thing is that there's a couple of kind of, in sport management, the idea of social responsibility or professional responsibility, just responsibility in general, has received a lot of topic and discussion last couple of years. And so I thought we'd kind of tie these two things with near the end of this leadership section to really kind of put a bow on trying to understand what leadership is and how it's going to relate to what it is that you all do in the organizational setting. So when talking about coaches, or it could be any sort of authority figure. As I say, coaches are not the only leaders, quote unquote, in these sport organizations, but they serve as a nice little case study. And what's kind of nice about them is they are so socially and organizationally visible. Okay, socially visible in that we know that according to the Josephson Report on Ethics, with regards to coaches and youth participants and adolescents and behavior, that you have this quote here. The good news is the majority of high school athletes trust and admire their coaches and are learning positive life skills and good values from them. This is what we like to, this is kind of the ultimate positive manifestation of leadership in terms of holistic development of individuals in some sort of environmental setting. However, whenever you say you have good news, there's also bad news. The bad news is many coaches, particularly in the high-profile sports of boys basketball, baseball, and football, are teaching kids how to cheat and cut corners without regard for the rules or traditional notions of fair play and sportsmanship. That becomes problematic because what we do know is that whenever you have any type of, and it's called bracketed morality, okay? It's where people are told that well, I'm gonna cheat in this game or this sport, and it's okay because I'm not a bad person, but in this particular context, I'll do this to gain an advantage. It's kind of rationalizations or justifications. Well, as that starts to happen, it can actually bleed over into the personal life of the individual. So, people have started to look at understanding coach effectiveness training. And what you're trying to do here is you educate coaches, and then coaches engage in these positive team building exercises or individual positive coaching education programs. And what you do is the hope is that as you have that positivity, it can be critical in the sense that it's trying to move that individual or that group to some sort of desired goal. Okay, so it doesn't have to always be rainbows, unicorns, and happy fun time. Okay, you can be critical and things like that, but it has to be done in a positive way. And the positive, sort of the coaching sandwich, as many of you have probably been associated with or have understood or been a part of or whatever, you kind of buffer the criticism with some sort of compliment. Hey, good effort, but Mark, you're doing, you're dropping your shoulders, you're swinging the bat. But you're doing a good job. Keep up the good work. Good eye. That kind of stuff. All right, and that's actually a horrible example. I realize that, and you can tell especially with my athletic prowess with regards to my baseball career, it was terrible. Apparently, no hand-eye coordination. Couldn't hit the ball. Whatever. Doesn't matter. But so I was the recipient of a lot of this, positive and negative coaching. And when you hear that, if you're trying to provide criticism to someone, you're trying to teach them how to run a particular software program, okay, in your sport organization. And you've showed them once, and what if that person doesn't remember? Because obviously people don't cognate and remember and draw these things up from long-term or short-term memory banks the exact same way. And so whenever you're doling out that constructive criticism, and this is going to be important too for evaluations. As you're evaluating your employees, oftentimes it's very, very effective to follow this type of little recipe. Coaching efficacy is one of those things that, again, when you're talking about leadership, what I'm trying to do is provide different examples of and models of effective leadership. Now, what is efficacy? If you kind of remember that, you have to talk about the belief that you can effectively complete something, a task or whatever, embody some sort of value, that type of thing. And so what you try to do in terms of your coaching behavior is in kind of working backwards here through the model. We know it moves from left to right on the screen. We're kind of talking about it logistically or theoretically here. This is the outcome, right? We want positive coaching behavior. This is what you always see. Well, how do you get this? Well, the coach has to be trained to the point that they understand and know and have information, psychology training, human resource management training, risk management, all these different things, so that what they're doing, the end result, is actually positive, good. Okay? Well, so then, where does this coaching efficacy come from? If you want to make sure that the individual has confidence, where does confidence come from? And that's kind of the million-dollar question. Oftentimes, there's things called mandated coaching education programs where you're trying to teach coaches how to teach, if you will, students and athletes and that kind of thing. So where does that, usually it's through some sort of education. If you go back to transformational leadership, kind of combining that with this model of coaching efficacy, you're talking about, remember the 4 I's in transformational leadership? Think of something like intellectual stimulation. People that have more knowledge, have more confidence when talking about a subject or when interacting in some sort of social environment. All right, so those could be your different sources. And as you start looking at developing positive programs, be it leadership programs, coaching programs, cognitive behavioral therapy programs, whatever, what also becomes important is to realize that you have the outcome of these, effective coaching behavior, for example, has to be in alignment with a variety of different goals that operate in the social environment. Okay, societal goals, professional goals, organizational and participant goals, all of these things relate to coaching behavior, for example, or leadership behavior in the sport organizational setting. So I want to kind of wrap up this discussion of leadership with this notion of goals. Understanding the far-reaching social or societal goals that are out there. Social responsibility. I talked about it at the beginning of this beginning lecture or leadership part 3. Within sport and recreation, there's been a lion's share of the emphasis has been on understanding responsibility. And you have professional responsibility, and we'll talk about those professional goals, but realizing that sport, recreation, physical activity, these are very, very unique environments that have the potential to produce these far-reaching impacts or effects on society. And it becomes incumbent on those people in the sport organizations, according to sport organizations, that the obligation is to not only protect individuals but also improve society's welfare. Now, this can be done from an ethical or philosophical point of view, the idea of teleologies and deontologies or utility, that you have this duty to maximize the welfare for all humanity. Well, that comes from business ethics, and that has been sort of molded and folded into what we do here in sport management. The idea is that these organizations, because they're high profile and they elicit such emotional behavior and following from a large number of people, has the opportunity, and some would say the obligation, to look at quality of life and try to impact social change. Okay? Now, I'm not telling you what to do. Your organization, these are all personal values that your organization and you are going to embody. But this is how it all relates to leadership. When you start talking about something like proper leadership in athletic and academic services for student athletes, a societal goal, you have a social responsibility to develop holistically these individuals so that you can improve their quality of life, not just through education and what they're doing in the sport, but you help them become a whole person at the end of this college sport nexus experience. Professional goals, exactly what it sounds like, is that every occupation, once it becomes professionalized, all right, and professionalism, as you can see in the second bullet, talks about kind of this organized, explicitly articulated profession. You have performance standards and an ethical code of conduct that are going to be associated with our profession, much like many other professions. Okay, what is considered right? What is considered wrong? You have professional integrity. That's going to be very, very important. What does that mean? Well, then you have professional competency. Those things then bleed into this more of a social responsibility aspect. And it's a spectrum, really. Or if you think of 7, 8 different points. Professional goals need to dovetail nicely with whatever social or organizational goals are going on around. And those are going to be important with regards to understanding effective leadership. Speaking of organizational goals, all right, not every organization is going to be able to offer the same types of experiences or services or things like that. Major League Baseball, the NBA, we're at the forefront of saying, you know what, we have a lot of individuals that are fans of our product, but they cannot afford to attend. So you have the $10 tickets in the NBA and $5 tickets that were instituted at Major League Baseball parks. Okay, the idea of, are they losing money? I don't know. I haven't actually seen the financial research, but a lot of people have said what it does is it endears itself to the community. That those organizations are endearing themselves to the community, and you're developing that psychic income for those of you that have had sport finance. And so that sort of social impact, or that psychic income that's able to develop either with that franchise or that event, that might be something that organizations want to look into. And so the leadership within those organizations needs to understand, what are the specific goals that we're trying to achieve? Is it just profit? Is it maximize? If you're thinking about minor league sports, especially if you're talking about minor league baseball, profit, that's not happening. Winning games, is that the point? No. As I'm one of those guys that asks a question and immediately answers, which I realize can be very irritating, but don't get bogged down in the process and try to follow what I'm saying here. Is that the point of minor league baseball is player development? That's the specific goal. Now, those organizations try to make it into a family-friendly experience, for example. Participant goals. What can sport provide individuals through consumption, be it participation, vicarious consumption, whatever? All right. Maybe physical expression, creativity, an outlet for competition, socializing. It teaches us and it helps us become more integrated and aligned with our culture or whatever's going on around us. Think about all the things that sport provides people. And so you have far-reaching goals on the social level, and you have these very, very myopic and individualistic goals with the participants in and of themselves. Between, kind of mashed in all that, you have the professionalism and then the organizations, sport organizations in UAL's case, that relate to a particular profession. Those goals need to be in the back of the minds of individuals as they're engaging in explicitly articulated leadership strategies. That's what we're trying to get across. Why? Because we can say everything that we want, but a basic tenet of social psychology is simply that these environments that we are all part of, be it as a consumer, as a participant, or as someone who's executing the event, these are social worlds, and these are environments that influence people. And so with that, you have to understand power. You have to understand what leadership actually means and how it relates to goals and processes of attaining goals. And then you need to have this sense of responsibility associated with setting these goals. And then if you really want to try to understand how to be a better leader, you can't just say, I think I'm going to go with my gut on this one, and I think we ought to hire this person. Okay? Think about all those different approaches that we talked about with regards to understanding leadership. You understand leadership. I know here locally, WSU Athletics brought in a consultant to talk about transformational leadership. It's not just me sitting behind a computer or standing in front of class because I like to do surveys and research is part of my job that I talk about this stuff. These things are being used in the business world. These things are being used in college athletics. Sport managers need to understand the nexus of all of these very, very diverse sources of information. Hopefully, you're able to take that information, kind of mold it and fold it into whatever it is that you're going to do so that you develop your leadership style over time. And that's what management is. Management and leadership are different. Management tends to be the strategies and the concepts used to operationalize this idea of leadership. Okay?